Critical difference number one is what we call signal versus noise. So in education, there's this concept of signal versus noise. Signal means that they're giving you information that is meant to lead you towards the right answer, right? It's there basically to lead you towards the right path. In contrast, noise is something that's there to really distract you. And so if you think about this from a test writer standpoint, right? A test that has a lot of signal is going to be something that really isn't trying to confuse you, whereas one that has a lot of noise is going to have distractors and other things that are going to try to lead you astray. Now, in general, step one questions have a lot of signal and pretty clear signal and not a lot of noise. In contrast, step two questions tend to have a lot more noise, and if anything, the signal is going to be weaker. So for example, on step one, diagnosis questions tend to be some of the easiest questions because they will give you a lot of the classic descriptions. So someone that has, say, a myocardial infarction is going to have the classic chest pain that radiates to the left shoulder or to the jaw. They might have ST elevations. They're going to have clear troponins, right? And they're not going to have a lot of other medical problems. In contrast, step two is going to have less strong signal, meaning maybe they're going to have this sort of vague epigastric pain, right? Not the classic sort of, left-sided chest pain. And maybe they're not going to give you very clear EKG changes, right? Maybe it's just T wave inversions. Maybe they're going to have an existing left bundle branch block, so it's going to be hard to see, right? But for whatever reason, it's not going to be as clear, right, that this is the classic signal for an MI. In addition to that, step two questions tend to have a lot more noise. So if you've ever noticed, just about everyone on step two for an MI has, say, GERD, right, and wondered, why does that make sense? Oftentimes it's because they're trying to muddy the waters, right? There are other things that can give you chest pain, gastroesophageal reflux, right, can give you chest pain. And so it's not uncommon for them to give you alternative diagnoses in the question stem that are going to make it harder for you to spot the real diagnosis. And so the first difference of signal versus noise is critical for you to understand if you're going to be able to get more questions correct on step one and on step two, because as we'll talk about in a little bit, these differences are going to set a clear difference in the expectations you should have and how questions should feel on the exam. The second big difference is about question types and question distributions. One of the biggest differences is in what they call the physician task. And so there's obviously different ways that you can slice and dice the test, right? They've got physician task, and then they've got system, and then they've got discipline. So I think one of the most instructive ways to look at the exam is to look at the physician task. And so on step one, 60 to 70% of the questions are what we call applying foundational science concepts. And so if you've watched our video on the NBME test writer secrets, where we go through and talk about the secrets behind how it is they write step one and step two questions, this is critical, okay? On the USMLEs in general, they're really, really clear about wanting you to actually apply foundational science principles, and nowhere is this more clear than on step one. And so you can see it here, 60 to 70% of the questions are applying foundational science concepts. You can also see it, as we'll talk about in a little bit, in the largest system, right? If you look at like cardiology or respiratory or things like that, the largest system is actually what they call general principles. I even was told once by someone who wrote questions for step one in the pathology section, roughly half of them are what they call general principles, right? So it's not something that's just a random detail. So one of the most important things to recognize is that they're really, really upfront with this, both in the way that they write the questions and in the breakdown of the material on the exam, that they are trying to test you on concepts. Note too, that for diagnosis, it's only about 20 to 25% of the test. As everyone knows for step two, so much more of it is based on clinical application of these concepts. Let me give you some examples. So whereas up to 25% of the test for step one is diagnosis, up to 46% of the test for step two is diagnosis. And for management, which is the pharmacology, interventions, and management section, up to 38% of the test is that. So if you think about it, almost up to 90% of the test is either diagnosis or management, which is a big difference from the up to only 25% of it for step one. If you're a medical student or a doctor preparing for either the USMLEs or COMLEX or one of your medical board exams, then be sure to sign up for our free 14-step program where we'll walk you through the most efficient ways for you to improve your score in a short period of time. And if you're interested in getting there faster, be sure to book a free call with our team where we'll break down what it is that's holding you back and, if it makes sense, explain how it is that we can help you to get there more efficiently.